I now come into BLAENAU GWENT. Below me was the pit of Cwmtaleiri. There shone no light. The hollow was edged in mist, and the Taleiri River flowed. Wrecked walls and chimneys of the disused farms rose up above me like wounds in a blanket of white. Sitting on a tump, I buried the 2 empty purses and counted the money. 38 sovereigns and loose change. More than I'd ever seen in my life. Hiding it in my muffler and down the slope into the stink of garbage. In the distance, a baby was crying, and through broken walls drifted dogs like ghosts, refuge piles, and eyes glimmered from corners. The whispers of living beings came through shattered windows, voices crucified by batons, whips, and worse. Smoke from chimneys here in the makeshift rooms were the aged, the old, the useless, maimed, called home. I slept amidst the outbuildings of the disused farmhouses. Crops from the brewery grew on our green oasis in the middle of all this blackened fire. With the tyrants, the ironmasters, having everyone working, men, women, and children. I could send my children to the school, but it would have to pay for the privilege, education and starvation. We all worked down the pit for tokens to spend at the company shop. I contemplated suicide. I could not go on living this way. All we had was work. I was a desperate man. I had stolen from an army officer. Every day we spent up to 14 hours working in that pit we all called hell. My 5-year-old working on the vent door. I could not explain how I felt, but I was at the point of deepest despair, starving, drinking rejected ale from the brewery, paid in tokens at the inn every 4 to 6 weeks. We are all feeling unwell. Will no one help us? There must be a better life. Here there lived the debtors who owed no debt, standard guardians of misery, the old who had built the Iron Empire and become worked out, the men of strength whose joints were dry, the women's breasts had vanished in the muscles of underground hauling. Here were my friends, my people, the blind, the diseased, the dying. Here lived my friends, blacklisted men, because of a difference with the master or his agent. Here lived their children, the skeletons of the tumps, who spent their lives begging and playing in slag. I found my mother standing in a doorway, bareheaded, her shawl low over her shoulders, face pale, her eyes hollows and shadows. She called to me. I went past her, smashed, flogged. I couldn't believe that he had arrested Henry Vincent. Why? He had done nothing wrong. He handed in our petition to Parliament, the People's Charter. Rising up from this green and pleasant land, from the base plate, grotesque arms that caught the moon. The winding here going round, more souls going down into hell. Looking at the stars, the candle flickers in the draught, past shadows, the piles of bricks, slag, and this light I saw my younger brother, clutching at the floor and sleeping. I saw my sister against the sooted wall, with her baby in her arms, awake, her eyes tired and empty. I saw my wife, lying with the blankets on her stomach. Her face was wet with sweat and tears, hair tangled. As I knelt, her face cold and blue with the pain within her as he clutched her hands and bit at them, whipping and gripped me, shaking with fear down my spine as part of my soul died. I saw the mountain. The baby turned. She was expecting. The baby is due. I left them, seeking oblivion, into the workers' yard, the tram line away, into the wilderness. My wife and family, I couldn't let them see me like this. Explosions of pain, shivering. I leaned into a wall, wiping a tear from my eye. The mist had risen from the Cwm. The Taleiri River was flowing. The moon was high in the sky. Above the coiti bringing the rain, the ruins into deeper darkness. I did not know how long I stood there, with outstretched hands. Why, God, why? My mum came over. I think for a while I hear her whispering, but my sister drew her away. And there was no place for me there. Things had to change. I gave Mam the money and told her to go to Carmarthen, back to farming. I had made up my mind. I was going to follow John Frost to Newport. Things had to change.